Thank you, everyone, for joining. Really, the purpose of today is to show you and demonstrate NetSuite planning for software companies. So just to introduce who I am and who Eric is, Eric will be giving the main demo. So my role at NetSuite is I'm a financial planning specialist. My background is in financial modeling. So I used to be a consultant, and I used to build out these models in Excel and other solutions. Come from a PS background, and I'm also a CPA with Big Four experience where I worked in hedge funds and financial services. Eric, he is a senior solution specialist, and he's going to be helping do the demo today. He's a former director of FP&A at a $100 million company, and he has over 15 years of finance and strategy experience and is an MBA, so he's a great resource for how he and other companies have done their planning before. Again, the purpose of today really is to first off give you an overview of the application, go through a few slides, explain what the product is, what the benefits and structure are, and then really most of it's going to be just the product demonstration, and at the end we're going to have a session for questions and answers, and hopefully make this as useful for you as possible. So really to introduce what this is, NetSuite Planning is powered by Adaptive Insights. So back in 2009, NetSuite evaluated all of the other kind of cloud-based FP&A solutions and planning and strategic planning solutions and decided that they wanted to partner with Adaptive. Since then, we've been white labeling it and OEMing the product, so it's embedded directly into NetSuite. We sell it, we implement it, we support the application, and we have over 750 joint customers. So really, it's a very strong partnership, and today you'll be going through some of the benefits of the integration and really showing kind of how this tool differentiates from other tools. So really, everyone's familiar with Microsoft Excel. Everyone's built in it. Excel is very easy to use, but it's also something that's very manual and error-prone. And if you're trying to kind of go on a global process or involve multiple people, it's very hard to share and collaborate in Excel. There are also legacy tools and systems like Hyperion, Cognos, Business Objects. All of those have very powerful features, but they're traditionally are typically very expensive and very complex to build in. While planning has the same powerful features, but from an implementation side, there's no IT required. It's a very collaborative and scalable solution. And Eric today will be able to show you how he, as the director of FP&A, he was the admin and administered the model for his company, and some of the benefits they've experienced using financial planning. On top of that, really a big benefit of this is, again, it's powered to plan anything. So really all of your software customers, so really today we're going to be focusing in on revenue forecasting, some of the deferred revenue recognition schedules, and incorporate from a P&L side personnel planning and headcount planning. But you can really have the power to plan anything that you want. So if you want to do project planning, capital planning, balance sheet, cash flows, it's really up to you how you want to use the system. The functionality is there. It's up to you how you want to use the strategic planning, what-if scenarios. And so you'll be able to get a feel of how that can be done today. Again, bringing in all of your NetSuite information to help you accommodate that. Here are some of the results that some of our customers have experienced. So again, 750 joint customers. Adaptive itself is the cloud leader with over 3,000 customers, more than all of the other solutions combined. Your pain points that you're currently experiencing are going to be kind of unique to you. And so the results that you experience are going to be very unique and specific. But again, these are just some of the feedback that we've gotten. Financial planning, Adaptive has always been ranked one of the top, if not the top, in customer experience and in ease of use and usability by Gartner, Forrester, and Nucleus Research. And really, that's the whole goal. It's a powerful, very powerful tool that allows you to do whatever kind of plans you want to do, but it also is something that doesn't take a year to build, doesn't need IT involvement or very technical financial skills, anything like that. It's really a tool that can make you very self-sufficient and own and be flexible and scalable with your planning process. So this is another tool that I wanted to bring up. This is an add-on to what you're going to see today. We're not going to have time to go into this, but this is very useful, and a lot of companies really love this. It's called process management. What it allows you to do is it allows you to create processes such as a year-end operating plan or a monthly close or reforecast, where under each process you can set up multiple tasks and you can assign those tasks to different people. And on top of that, you can have attachments that you can pull into each task. So, for example, if you're trying to set targets for your current year budget, you can attach targets from last year's and the prior year's targets as well to help as a reference. You can also collaborate and chat with your team members within the tool, as opposed to having to go into email or anything like that. So it promotes collaboration, and it also hits your deadlines efficiency for actually your entire planning process, because you can set dates and target dates and see what people are doing and if they're running late or in progress or their tasks have been completed. And then finally, I think we are going to have time to get into this. This is called Office Connect. This is an add-on to our native web reporting-based product as part of planning that you'll see today. And so Eric is also going to jump into Office Connect. What this really allows you to do is pull in your information from your planning model directly into Microsoft applications such as Excel, Word, and PowerPoint, and allow you to, from Excel, Word, and PowerPoint, actually refresh all of your data as often as you want and be able to keep your same Excel formulas and board books that you currently use right now and work on consolidating from all of your sources. So with that, again, that was just a quick few slides. Really, the purpose of this is the demo. So I'm going to pass this on to Eric, and he will be taking over the rest of the call.
Excellent. Thanks, Greg. So as Greg said, my name is Eric Zimmerman. I actually was a finance professional for many, many, many years, and was given an opportunity to learn NetSuite and NetSuite financial planning with about a $100 million software company in Arizona. And so with that, I'm very familiar with both solutions and how they interact with one another. And so on today's demonstration, what I'll do is really tailor this to software as a service companies. And, with my experience in software, this will, I'll kind of walk through how the solution is used to really help take out the mundane and the repetitive nature of most planning systems and really put us as financial professionals in a position where we can then be more strategic. And we'll talk about some customer examples and some of the examples that I experienced as well. So what we start off with is the dashboard. For most software companies, these are the main KPIs, the key performance indicators that software companies are looking at. If you're an annual revenue business, you might have an ARR. If you're a monthly business, it might be MRR. CAC is also something that's very specific to each customer. But what we have here is the way that we display the data for very easy consumable information. So the use case here would be executive management teams. You show this, have this published every Monday at 8 a.m., and the executive team comes into their executive meeting, and they don't have to spend the first 10 minutes arguing whose numbers are right because it's all coming from that same system. So, NetSuite feeds in directly into the financial planning application, and so these numbers are always up to date as of the last data refresh. These charts are very self-service, so if I select one of these pieces of information, I can then break it down by any level of dimension of data or slice of data that you have. Bookings, we could do it by level or by cohort or customer, etc. This also allows whoever's looking at the data set to quickly navigate to the next month, and the charts will update with that month's data. One of the things that I really like about the solution is that I can go from a high-level data set like this, because most of us have had the experience of spending, a good portion of the morning creating a chart, only to have the person we send it to within 10 seconds say, hey, what is that number? Where did that number come from? So this allows, especially in the ratio like LTV to CAC, I can quickly get into the data set and actually look at what is making up that number and what are the components of the number. So here in this example, I've got my LTV account and my CAC account, but I also have what is the evaluation of that formula. So this allows you or anybody who's accessing the data that you've given permission to access this type of data to then further explore, thus reducing kind of that back and forth emails of, hey, where did this number come from? You now have given them the power to explore on their own. Also, everything has an audit trail. So as things change, as new information comes in, new assumptions are given, those changes to the model are documented in our audit trail. So you have, at any time, you can search by timestamp or by the person entering the data. You can see who and what was changed. So it really, that's part of the value proposition of a corporate performance management like NetSuite Financial Planning powered by Adaptive, is that you have the ability to put ownership in the hands of those who want that. So, for instance, username and passwords are very important because it really gives the end user the power to see just what they have access to see. So, like my username and password for my online banking, I'm not seeing Greg's information when I put in my username and password. And that's the exact same thing here. As username and password, you can give access to have them view various different parts of the company. So if you have multiple companies that roll up to your overall company, you can give just specific permission to view company B, company A, etc. So that's really, the power of a software platform that's fully integrated with actuals coming in from NetSuite, and then the budgets being created within the application, and then this dashboard is just sitting on top. All of the dashboard creation is done with drag and drop, and then I'll demonstrate where you can actually create a dashboard dial on the fly. And so that's what we'll kind of get into as well. And so for the sake of time, I've just opened up some of the sheets that we're going to be walking through here. But what you have now is a software solution where you have everything in one place. And what I mean by that is actuals are in one place, your reports are in one place, your assumption sets, all of the different sheets. So if you're coming out of an Excel world, Excel is great for lots of things, easy to format, easy to change on the fly. With a solution like this, you now have everybody playing in that same sandbox. So you don't have a version final sitting on somebody's hard drive that you need to get access to, and they're on vacation. This allows that scalability, the collaboration, but it's all in one place. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and then this is kind of where most people start a budget process, or if you're in Excel, this is kind of one of the tabs or a separate workbook that holds your assumptions. In the SaaS world, typically revenue forecast and forecasting is probably one of the most intense and kind of data intensive and time-consuming aspects of the forecast. So NetSuite Financial Planning allows the creation of as many different assumption waterfalls as you want for your revenue. Now, if you only have one line of business or one revenue stream, that's great. You'll only have one or two assumptions. Maybe you break it out by product. In this example, I'm breaking it out by kind of the way that the dollars are coming in, whether it's time and material type service behavior, or it might be new customer flows or existing customer flows. But if I were to select this time and material billing with waterfall, what would appear would be something that I'm sure most of you have in an Excel environment, would be a waterfall that gets created based on numbers. Now, what's great about this and integrated into NetSuite is I'm drawing actual data out of NetSuite into NetSuite Financial Planning. It's doing a lot of the legwork for me. So once this is set up, and obviously there'd be an implementation to get the right percentages and the right churn rates that are reflective of your individual businesses, now I can do cohort analysis where I'm looking at when somebody joined the company, and then based on just a simple percentage fall off or churn rate, I'm able to then forecast out what this revenue stream might look like based on those who joined month 0, month 1, etc. One of the things that I do want to point out is in the creation of formulas throughout the model, unlike Excel where you're referencing kind of a C3 times B21, within NetSuite Financial Planning, what you're doing is just accessing accounts. So in this model, I'm looking at the purchases, the time and material purchases from a sheet, and then multiplying it times my building waterfall assumption percentage, which is this 10.8%. So you can get very simple calculations like you do in Excel, or if you have embedded if statements or VLOOKUPs, and there's a slightly different nomenclature, but it's doing exactly what you're wanting it to do. So the learning curve for somebody in a professional finance role into NetSuite Financial Planning is relatively short. In fact, I was kind of thrown into the wolves, and I had 5 weeks to turn a full budget, P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, personnel, the whole 9 yards, and I had about 5 weeks to do it. And I had never heard of NetSuite Financial Planning before, and dove right in and was able to complete it in that 5-week period of time. So yes, there is a learning curve, just like any new software, but really it was built by finance for finance. This is not an IT build where you have to constantly contact IT to get a report out or change any of the assumptions. It's right here for you. Some of the other assumptions that you can have would be like financial statement drivers. So this would be what's driving kind of the outward look of your balance sheet. So balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, all of that can be administered and all tie out, which is a very useful tool, especially if you're early stage, kind of cash is king mode, to see what impact would change to my cash position if I delayed hiring by 3 months. Or what would happen is if we paid variable at 120% versus 80%. All of those types of questions can be answered very quickly. And that's kind of where I want to go in next, is the ability to create multiple versions. So this is kind of a paradigm shift for people in an Excel world, where you're almost dreading creating a new tied-out budget. If somebody comes and says, your CEO comes and says, I want a 5-year plan based on this 1 year, the time it takes to extend out the formulas and make sure all the links are created, etc. Within NetSuite Financial Planning, you're able to create a create a budget version in about 10 seconds. And you can have as many versions as you want, each of them having a little bit different flavor or different feel. And as I've asked customers over time who've been customers, when I've said, hey, how many versions of a budget or how many versions of a forecast do you have? It's not uncommon for people to say, oh, I have 20 versions. Well, if that was in Excel, it would just, kind of mind-blowing that you would have 20 versions. But it really, because version control and security is paramount within NetSuite Financial Planning, you're not worried about, version control and having it sit on somebody's desk. Everybody can play in that same version, and then you take snapshots of the versions that you're working on, and you can create reports on that. And we'll get to that at the end of the forecast, end of the demonstration. But you can then have personnel assumptions, and most people in software, it's either personnel and marketing or personnel and lead generation are your biggest expenses. And so being able to have these specific personnel assumptions that are sitting behind the scenes, that you're not clouding Excel formulas or sending this off and praying that nobody changes these. Here you can have them all in one place. You can have them specific to the country that you're in. In this example, I have United States, but I can easily have multiple locations. They could plan in their local currency, and then rolling that up in a kind of a corporate currency is out-of-the-box functionality. So once these personnel assumptions are given, then I can then use them to produce my kind of personnel expenses. So kind of moving back on to waterfalls and revenue planning, once you've established waterfalls like this, and you can have them for any level of granularity you want, if it's by product or by line of business, then you're now bringing in data from another source, whether it's NetSuite Financial Planning or another CRM that you're running concurrently, you can bring these data points in. So you're not just bound by the data set that's found in NetSuite, although the connection is very, very tight. You can also bring in data from other third-party sources. We have many customers bringing in weather data because their ticket sales or their product sales are based on weather. And so they bring that in as a data source. So you can have this coming in, then you're not impacting that system of record. Now it's an adaptive. I can come in and change the probability, which is great when you have salespeople that like to pad their numbers or like to undercommit and over-deliver. That's something that as a finance team, you can come in and make changes to the revenue outlook, which then becomes an overall forecast. So as I create sheets now, I'm kind of now moving into the sheet creation. So once those assumptions are set, I'm bringing in my data set that I want to then power my revenue forecast. Then I create a sheet called revenue forecast. And that's basically the creation and the final resting point for all of these assumptions and sheets that I'm interlinking. I now start with a bookings forecast. That bookings comes from my CRM data set based on the line of business that I have. And then I bring in my monthly recurring revenue details, whether it's new business or renewals business, and then applying a churn rate to each one of those. I then down at the very end have a revenue forecast that is the combination of all of the data sets that we have in SaaS, and then applying the revenue recognition principles that we have on that, whether it's daily revenue recognition or a spread across a time horizon based on the contract length. Any of that specific information would be captured as an assumption or in the model itself. And then you as a finance professional are just then tweaking some assumptions and letting the power of NetSuite financial planning kind of churn out that revenue forecast. So really what I'm trying to impress is that we have the power, the flexibility, and the knowledge with software being one of the largest verticals that we have in NetSuite financial planning, is that you have the ability to apply your specific company's revenue lines of business, revenue recognition, deferred balances, deferred revenue. All of this can be maintained within NetSuite financial planning. So once the revenue is planned, kind of if you think about the next largest expense or the next most time-consuming would be your personnel sheets. So in this example, and once again, this is just an example, you can have it configured to your specific needs, that I'm planning in this example, I'm planning by person, by line item, where we have other models that are built based on role. So you're planning by role and the numbers you need. So either way works just as well. It just depends on your specific company's desires. But this is probably one of the most common. In fact, you might even have an Excel sheet that looks like this. Now, for a non-finance user, and this is really kind of stepping into corporate performance management, where you have username and passwords that are utilizing specific pieces of the organization structure. For this example, I'm a sales north manager, and I'm viewing just my department. But if I'm an administrator and I have access to the entire organization structure, I can quickly navigate to the total company and see the total for the entire company. There is no batch processing with NetSuite financial planning. So as changes are made in a specific version, I can see that roll up. So gone are the days of sending out tabs of Excel spreadsheets out to the individual users, praying that they don't change something, collecting them back in, having a day or 2 days of consolidation of this information. That's no longer an issue with NetSuite financial planning. You give access to the sales north, they add a head count, they hit save. Now you're immediately seeing the roll up and the kind of the build up of the version, the budget over time. So you can lock versions, you can make them read only, you can hide versions from others. So if you're adding in a new what if, let's say that I've got, an increase in 15% sales or a decrease in sales, I can create these what if scenarios, as many as you want. And then each of these pieces of information, the assumptions, the sheets that I'm working in, are specific to that version. So for this example, if I wanted to add a new headcount or delete a headcount, I mean, it's simple as, right-clicking and deleting or copying a row. If I wanted to change, let's say, Sean Jones' salary information or raise date, there are no formulas in the sheet itself. And so if I'm a manager of Sales North and I'm not an expert in Excel, I'm not bogged down by specific formulas that I have to be leery of. Simply, it's just a row of data. Now, behind the scenes, if I come to row details and expose what's happening behind the scenes I have all of the accounts and the formulas that are happening behind the scenes I have here listed on the left-hand side. And so the individual user, the non-finance user, is not going to see all of this detail, but this is what's happening behind the scenes. So depending on what pieces of data that I want my end users to put in here, I then have all the wonderful detail behind the scenes. But if you were to ask a sales manager, do they care about their New York SUI, I'm sure they're going to say no, they don't care. But we in finance and accounting definitely care about that level of granularity and detail because it's real cost. So this also allows you to allocate between departments, or if this is projects, if this column is projects, you can allocate headcount between projects or between departments very quickly and easily. And have, we see this a lot with design teams as they kind of roll on and roll off of projects. This ability to spread the expenses to those individual projects that are happening in software, it's very easy and non-intrusive for a customer to set these up. So now that you have kind of your revenue plan in the same place, you've got your expense plan personnel plan, then we kind of move over to expense planning. And expense planning, this is where you're going to give access either to your finance professionals or to, once again, the Sales North manager to come in and plan data. Now, corporate performance management and NetSuite financial planning allows you to do a lot of driver-based plans. What I mean by driver-based plans is, let's click on new hire training and look up here in the account, in the formula bar. You don't have to have a finance degree to kind of see what this is doing. So I'm looking at the account from the personnel sheet for those people who are starting this month, and then multiplying it by my new hire sales training. Because it's a database, you don't have to have specific code for time. For instance, if I navigate across this account, you can see my formula is exactly the same. And that's because the power of NetSuite Financial Planning is that time is relative to where my position is in the sheet. So it's going to know when I move to April, it's going to look for those who are starting in the month of April. So from a formula creation, I don't have to worry about time as you do in an Excel world. You have to do the absolute, the dollar signs this, dollar signs that to make sure that I'm grabbing the right time period. But in NetSuite Financial Planning, that doesn't apply. And then, I can have an assumption either from a corporate level pushing down and saying, okay, everybody for new hire training, I'm going to do, $300 or $100, and I think this is, $150 of new hire training. Or I can add another level of granularity and just put in, type in a number. So there's a lot of, this is not, wowing, hard software code. It's pretty basic, but things like adding annual amounts and typing just an annual amount. I can, just add an annual amount, and then it tells me, hey, how would you like to break that number back? Do I want to break that evenly or use last year's seasonality? So if I look at last year's seasonality and hit apply, without the use of any formulas, a non-finance user can take an annual amount and spread it back monthly using last year's seasonality. And then changing the color and the font blue indicates that I need to save. So I can quickly save that data point. Now, there's some neat things that have come out in the latest release is the ability to interface with this data sheet. I can post something directly to the dashboard. So let's say I want to have a dashboard item that is all of my kind of airfare, hotels, and other T&E, and I want to quickly create a dashboard chart. Simply selecting this chart icon, it already kind of says, well, this is what chart you want. You can come in here and, if you want line, area, bar chart, all of that. You can mess around with what kind of quarterly breakdown or monthly breakdown you want in the chart. And then this allows me to then post directly to the dashboard. So I just pick a position that I want this dashboard to go and hit save. So what it does is all of the dimensionality of the data is set there, and I've just now posted this chart to the dashboard. So the kind of pervasive analytics that we have throughout NetSuite Financial Planning is you're no longer just stuck with kind of data sets. I can bring spark lines in on this sheet, and I can look at my data, my whole data set, just using kind of a high-level spark line, where no longer is it just kind of a bland data entry sheet. I can now see where there's trends and where my data might be off or might be coming on, and select this chart and look at the data set. If I want to compare versus my last year's plan, I can bring multiple versions in on this sheet as well. So really full functioning, very user-friendly data sets and data trends. If I wanted to move this data set down, maybe I don't want it at 100,000, maybe I want it at 43,000. Simply by selecting the chart, I can bring it down, and now you see the data set has been impacted in the actual data chart. So if you have very visual people in your organization that like to see charts instead of numbers, they can plan their entire budget using charts. Okay. So once this is all planned, so you've got your revenue forecast, you've got your personnel plan, now you've got your expense planning. And a little side note of expense planning, each one of these accounts can be made read-only. It can be hidden. So if you have sales reps that you only want to see, you want to give them only 3 or 4 places to input data, you can lock everything out. And this is kind of the grayed out area here with this depreciation. We're basically telling the individual of Sales North is that's coming from somewhere else. Don't bother planning it. It's going to be coming from somewhere else. But it is fully integrated. So if I want to see, who is making up this data set, simply by selecting the Explore cell, it pulls up a window that then allows me to explore even further into that data. Now, for those who are familiar with Excel, the Excel tries to do this with trace dependencies, but this is, trace dependencies that actually is useful, where I can navigate into the individual account. I can see where this account shows up on what sheets, and then just another simple click on that evaluation of the number. If I have permission to see salary data, it'll actually show you the salaries and who is making up that data point, and I can go into the personnel sheet and either add or remove or change or update. And so this is a fully integrated solution. It's not different systems and different spreadsheets. I mean, it is fully integrated with one another. So now that you have your expenses all laid out, and you want to now see maybe a budget versus actuals, so the actuals are coming in automatically from NetSuite, and now I want to see my reports. You can create report books that your teams are being given access to. Once again, security is super important, so that username and password is going to be super important, allowing maybe if I'm that Sales North manager, I come to Sales North and render this exact same sheet. I'm only going to, when I come into the sheet, I'm only seeing what I have access to. So, unlike an Excel world or other solutions where you kind of have to cut and paste and send out tabs, individual tabs for those people that you want to only see information, when they come and access these HTML reports, they're only seeing what they have access to. So because it's HTML, all of these kind of data points you can link on and view the individual pieces of the data, so they can drill into transactions. If you bring in transactions, I'm able to kind of drill into the transaction level detail and see what transactions are making up that number. And so, you have that ability. You have the ability to do conditional formatting. So really, it's a very full function report writer. And to create the reports, we call matrix reports, this is what it would look like. It's like a pivot table on steroids. All of the accounts, all of the different versions that you have created, whether it's last year's versions or this year's version. In fact, I just had a customer yesterday say, in their older solution, they have a CPM solution, corporate performance management, and they were saying how do I replicate what I did in the past? Do I go and change and manipulate assumptions to try to recreate what the budget would have looked like? And I said, actually, no, that just becomes a version that you can compare to. So you just drag these things on. So if I wanted to see my 2015 budget versus my 2016, forecast or working scenario, you can bring those in and then maybe bring in actuals at the same time. So you're bringing actuals in. You're looking at what accounts. I have, maybe I want to look at my revenue accounts and maybe my cost of revenue and expenses and net income. And then you pull in and drag in what time. What time do I want? And as you can see, there's no code. There's no coding at all. I can bring it in, and for the sake of time, I'll just run this report. But there's no specific coding. You don't need an IT degree. You can teach this to anybody. They're just dragging in information. And here, in just a matter of seconds, I have an ad hoc report, which is at the summary level, but I can drill into the individual components and see what my actuals are for 2015, what my working budget is, what my forecast is going forward. So this really allows that ability to self-serve. The community your budget community can create reports, obviously with what they have permission. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about is the integration with Office. Now, all of us recognize the power that Excel has in formatting and kind of that board reports. You can create board reports in PowerPoint and Excel. This now allows you, the Office Connect allows you to take the data set that you have in NetSuite Financial Planning and actually bring it into Excel. So I'm in an Excel spreadsheet. I'm just navigating down to the accounts that I want to drag over and simply dragging those on. I now have connected an Excel sheet to NetSuite Financial Planning. What you have now is the ability to just refresh this data. It drags the data out of NetSuite Financial Planning and brings it into Office Connect. And then as you go to the next month, all you do is come to the book properties. You move the date setting from March to April. All of the formats remain the same. All of the columns remain the same. Now all I do is update all of the sheets at once, and so my managerial report is now updated. What was once March, it now turns to April. All the months are respective to that report date, so they've adjusted. So what I had, it was a March actual budget variance report. Now it's April, and all the data is the same. So whether you're in the browser, whether you're in Excel, you don't have version control issues. Everything is coming from that single source of truth. And what's great about it is now if I have a board deck where I have charts and graphs and embedded kind of embedded P&Ls, all I have to do is come up to Office Connect, hit refresh, and in a matter of seconds, what was once an April board deck or April report gets updated with that latest and greatest numbers. So what was once March was now April. And so you can now, all of that tactical time that was spent creating a forecast is now automated. And so I can now spend what would have been 60 minutes, 50 minutes out of an hour creating the slide deck and creating the Excel report. Now in a matter of, well, in this case, a matter of seconds, but let's just say 10 minutes, I now have 50 minutes to be strategic in my storytelling, to actually dig into the information, to drill through the numbers and see what the actuals are and really build that story. And that's really what we do at NetSuite and NetSuite Financial Planning is move finance organizations up the strategy stack, to be more strategic, to get you out of the mundane, and the kind of the time it takes to create these things has been eliminated, so that you now are freed up to actually do what you went to school to do, and that's be strategic and look at the business from a numbers perspective and create those stories. So really that's the power of NetSuite financial planning, is having everything in one place. You now have reporting in one place. You have dashboards in one place. Everything is there so that you can quickly create a new version, create a new deck, create a new slide presentation, and now I can have that time to be strategic and look at the numbers, which is something I believe most of us have struggled with, is just creating the information. We don't have time to actually review it and create the story. So this allows that opportunity. So, with that, I will kind of turn this over back to Greg, question answers. I've given a little bit more time just so that we can, if you have anything that you want me to show specifically, I can talk about it some more.
That's great, Eric. Thanks. I'll be moderating the Q&A so both you and Greg can participate. And I'm glad that we do have a little bit of time, because some of these questions might make sense for you to pop back into the demo. We'll see how it goes. I do want to remind everybody that if you do have a question that you'd like to have answered, it's not too late to submit that. You do that via the Q&A panel in the WebEx application itself. So why don't we go ahead and get started with we've got a few questions. People are asking if if something changes in my business, how easy is it for me to create another department or do some other type of change? What is that process like if my business changes later on down the line after I've got this solution up and running?
So one of the things that I really do admire and really like about NetSuite financial planning is the ability to drag and drop organization structures, to be alerted when a new account is created. Really, we all know that the only thing we can count on is our business to change. A lot of times people think they can, reorganize themselves into profitability, and so you're changing, it seems like, every quarter. So organization structures changes are done from an admin perspective, and it's drag and drop. Creating new organization structures, you can create one-offs at a time, or if let's say you buy a business and acquire a business that has 100 accounts, you can actually append the organization structure within the administration of the product. So it really is, we recognize, and that's kind of, because it was built by finance and for finance, they recognize the need to have that fairly easy task to make changes to organization structures.
Great. Thanks, Eric, for that. Another question that we have is, how do you handle, is there a way to set up allocations such in a way that it will feed the OpEx kind of portion of your engine and model?
Yeah, so I'm just kind of navigating the administration, and really I feel like this is one of the things that kind of differentiates NetSuite financial planning than really others out there that I've seen is the administration of the actual solution is intended by finance. It's for finance. And, we can, managing allocation rules. We actually have an allocation rule builder. And so essentially what it does is it has an allocation account, which is a system account. So let's say I'm spreading IT. It takes the IT allocation, what accounts I want, spreads it based on head count to all others. And so what IT sees, they can plan their whole expense, and they don't lose any of that granularity of expenses. Just all the way down at the bottom of their expense sheet, it says IT allocation out, and it's the negative of whatever their roll-up is. And then what others...
Are you showing anything, or are you just walking?
I'm not showing anything. I'm just kind of talking about it. But I mean, obviously, I can show things. Managing the allocation rules. Here's an IT allocation rule, and these run in sequence. So if I want to do rent allocation first, you put that in order first, and then the IT allocation. It basically you set up where it's coming from and where it's going. Here's my source levels. Here's my target levels. I pick what accounts are coming out of IT and how it's being weighted. In this case, it's headcount, how it's being weighted. And so what individuals will see in their departments will be an IT allocation in, and the IT allocation out account will sit on the IT department. So hopefully that answers the question about allocation.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. Now, I think this next question will be quite interesting, Eric, given that you used to work at FP&A at a large company. People that are interested in a solution like this that have maybe been getting by or not getting by with spreadsheets, and they're wanting to help build a business case to get some traction with this. How would you recommend that people approach that? Is that something that and how can we help them do that?
So, kind of the question rephrases is how do you build the ROI case for a solution like this with what's interesting is, IT in the 90s and 2000s, IT got all of the investment companies made. And finance was left with Excel. What we're seeing and kind of the trend in the marketplace is now it's kind of finance's time because people see how fruitful and the return on investment is made with a solution like NetSuite Financial Planning and NetSuite 2. So really what I would do, and maybe Greg has some comments on this as well, what I would do is kind of look at how much time it takes to create a model, how much time and resources it takes to run a budget. We have some customers that have seen a 75% reduction in the time it takes to do a budget. And then you quantify that because those are real savings. And we have some that don't hire that next finance person because NetSuite Financial Planning allows them to scale their current organization. Greg, do you have any comment on that?
No, I completely agree. I think, it depends on where you are today. I think quantifying it is the best approach because if you're a company with 100 budget owners, maybe the biggest pain is really collaboration and getting everyone's input in a timely manner, which we can help with. Or if you have 2 people in your FP&A department and you're trying to expand it and decentralize it and include people all over the world, then we have a great use case for that as well in terms of, and we can help you quantify that in terms of what that would mean by having people actually do their own budgets and in terms of forecast accuracy and timing. And so it's really going to be particular, specific to your business and understanding where your pain is. We can help you understand how we can help fix that.
Right. And I know that there's been some questions about integration. There's a pre-built integration between NetSuite and NetSuite Financial Planning or powered by Adaptive. It's already pre-built. So, that's how our partnership is constructed. And then we have the pre-built connector to Salesforce too. So I know a lot of you guys run Salesforce as well. And so we have pre-built connectors to Salesforce as well. And we're adding to the connectors our integrations product of what is actually pre-built connectors.
That's great. Thanks for adding that. Yeah, we have had a few questions around integrations. A couple of other areas I want to touch on really quickly. What is the concept of deferred revenue, and how is that managed? Obviously, that's something that software companies deal with quite a bit. Can you touch on that?
Yeah. So that kind of lends itself to maybe its own little sheet within your model. Now, it might not be, but really, revenue recognition, it's really just how am I spreading a known pie piece? How am I slicing that pie, and when am I giving that pie piece out? So in this example here, I've got a billings forecast where I'm taking my deferred balance, adding what I know of my billing, and then applying the revenue recognition principles so that down at the very bottom, I've got a new deferred balance. And so because NetSuite Financial Planning, the best practice is to have it integrated with your cash flow and your balance sheet then these individual accounts, the deferred balances, then tie into your balance on your balance sheet with your deferred revenue. And then you can see the deferred revenue working off, as time goes on and turns into revenue. That's really when we start speaking about the integrated nature of this, to be able to add in, what is my total deferred balance, my total revenue that I'm recognizing in a given month. That's kind of what that sheet is highlighting that I'm showing here, which I think am I still showing my sheet or no?
No, we can't see the application.
Oh, had a good conversation with myself. So
there we go.
So this is a sheet. Sorry, I thought I was broadcasting. Sorry. This is a sheet that you might have, which is taking your billings and kind of starting with the deferred balance, working through your billing schedule and your revenue recognition, and then coming down at the very end with an ending deferred balance.
Great. Very helpful to show this. And then we have time for one last question, and this is another scenario that a lot of software companies find themselves in. They have a direct sales organization that's generating a great deal of their revenue, and they also have a channel organization. So they've got a revenue stream coming in from a third party. And can you talk maybe a little bit about how this solution might be used to, whether it's forecasting or any other part of the FP&A cycle, when people have that type of kind of dual sales model?
Well, I mean, that dual sales model, if you think about what would you do currently, let's just take Excel, for instance. You'd probably have a workbook in Excel, and you might even have some sheets and some assumptions that you're playing with in Excel that represents that line of business. So what we're saying is that can just be pulled in to, even if you have assumptions. In this example, I have assumptions with T&M, but I could also have an assumption that's my, third-party revenue assumption. And maybe I'm actually grabbing data from that customer, that, partner that's bringing data in or revenue in from a file, and I can actually upload that file into the application. So it would necessitate creating maybe another assumption or maybe its own sheet, and then you can combine those two in a P&L.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we're coming up on the top of the hour. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Eric, both, for taking our audience through this today. Really appreciate it, and we appreciate everyone in our audience tuning in. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.